Have you ever extended a helping hand to someone only to later regret it? Perhaps you believed that your kindness would create a positive impact, but instead, it led to complications, misunderstandings, or even harm. If you have experienced this, you are not alone. Many people, especially those who are naturally compassionate, have faced the painful realization that helping is not always beneficial. In Buddhist teachings, the concept of wisdom, prajna, is always balanced with compassion, karuna. True wisdom is not about denying help, but knowing when and how to help in a way that benefits everyone involved. This wisdom has been passed down through generations, from ancient monks to modern spiritual teachers. Today, we will explore 6 specific ways in which wise people refrain from offering help, not out of selfishness, but out of understanding and discernment. These lessons are not just philosophical, they are practical tools that can protect your emotional, financial, and spiritual well-being. By the end of this discussion, you will have a clearer understanding of when to step forward and when to step back, ensuring that your kindness remains a true blessing rather than an unintended burden. Let's begin. Number 1, don't help with things beyond your capacity. There is a famous Buddhist teaching, a small boat cannot carry a great burden. This simple yet profound statement reminds us that every individual has their own capacity for responsibility, and exceeding that capacity can lead to unnecessary suffering. While helping others is a noble act, there are limits to what we can and should do. If we take on responsibilities beyond our strength, we risk not only failing in our attempt to help, but also harming ourselves and potentially those we intended to assist. In our society, we are often encouraged to be generous, kind, and selfless. These values are undoubtedly admirable, but they must be balanced with wisdom. Without proper discernment, even the purest intentions can lead to harm. This is especially true when we overextend ourselves, whether emotionally, financially, or physically, in an attempt to aid others. To illustrate this principle, let's consider the story of Mr. Chen, a retired school teacher in his 70s. Mr. Chen was known in his community for his kindness and generosity. Having lived a frugal life, he had saved enough money to sustain himself comfortably in his old age. Throughout his life, he had helped numerous relatives and friends who faced financial difficulties. He believed that his assistance could uplift them and provide them with a better future. One day, his nephew, a young entrepreneur, approached him for help. The nephew had a promising business idea but needed a loan to get started. Since he lacked a strong credit history, the bank required a co-signer, and he turned to his generous uncle. Mr. Chen, not wanting to disappoint his nephew, agreed to co-sign the loan, believing that it was a temporary risk that would lead to long-term success. Unfortunately, the business failed due to unforeseen economic conditions. The bank then demanded repayment from Mr. Chen, who, as the co-signer, was legally responsible for the debt. With no way to pay off such a large sum, Mr. Chen was forced to liquidate his savings. The stress and financial loss took a toll on his health, and his once close relationship with his nephew deteriorated. Out of guilt and shame, the nephew distanced himself from Mr. Chen, leaving the elderly man to deal with the consequences alone. This painful experience taught Mr. Chen a hard truth. Helping others should never come at the cost of one's own stability. While his intention was noble, his decision to assist beyond his capacity ultimately caused him great suffering. Buddhism places great emphasis on compassion and generosity, but it also teaches mindfulness and wisdom in our actions. True generosity does not mean giving blindly. It requires discernment. The middle way, balance in giving. Buddhism promotes the middle way, which encourages balance in all aspects of life, including generosity. Helping others is virtuous, but not when it leads to self-harm. Imagine a person who gives away all their food to others and starves in the process. This is neither wise nor sustainable. Instead, one should give within their means, ensuring that both they and those they help remain stable. 2. Karma and personal responsibility. Buddhism also teaches the principle of karma, where every individual is responsible for their own actions and consequences. While we can offer support to others, we cannot take on their karmic burdens. Mr. Chen's nephew had the responsibility to manage his business wisely. By co-signing the loan, Mr. Chen took on a financial burden that was not his own, disrupting the natural balance of karma. 3. Compassion with wisdom. Compassion without wisdom can be harmful. If a mother bird continuously feeds her chicks without ever teaching them to fly, they will remain dependent forever. True help empowers others rather than making them reliant. Instead of financially rescuing his nephew, Mr. Chen could have guided him toward alternative ways of securing funds or encouraged him to refine his business plan before taking on debt. When to say no. Saying no can be difficult, especially when we care about someone deeply. However, there are times when refusing to help is the best decision for both parties. Here are some guidelines for knowing when to say no. 1. When it threatens your own well-being. If helping someone would put you in a financially, emotionally, or physically precarious position, it is a sign that the request is beyond your capacity. Prioritizing your well-being is not selfish. It is necessary for long-term sustainability. 2. When it enables dependency. If someone repeatedly asks for help without making efforts to improve their situation, your assistance may be fostering dependency rather than growth. It is better to guide them towards self-sufficiency rather than continuously providing for them. 3. When it violates your values. Sometimes helping others may require compromising your principles. If a request goes against your moral or ethical beliefs, it is important to stand firm and politely decline. 4. When you lack the necessary skills or resources. You may genuinely want to help, but if you lack the expertise or resources to do so effectively, it is wiser to direct the person to someone who is better equipped to assist them. Helping others does not mean putting yourself at risk. There are ways to be generous while maintaining your own stability. 1. Offer guidance instead of financial support. Instead of giving money, provide advice, mentorship, or resources that empower the person to help themselves. 2. Set boundaries. It is perfectly acceptable to set limits on how much time, energy, or resources you can offer. Communicate your boundaries clearly and kindly. 3. Encourage responsibility. Help others develop the skills and knowledge they need to overcome their challenges independently. 4. Give in ways that are sustainable for you. If financial assistance is not feasible, consider other forms of support such as emotional encouragement, networking opportunities, or volunteering your time. Helping others is a beautiful and noble act, but it must be done with wisdom. A small boat cannot carry a great burden. We must recognize our own limits and ensure that our generosity does not lead to self-destruction. By practicing mindful giving, we can support others in ways that are meaningful, sustainable, and beneficial for all involved. The next time someone asks for your help, pause and reflect. Am I truly able to help without harming myself? If the answer is no, then saying no is an act of wisdom, not selfishness. In doing so, you not only protect yourself, but also encourage the other person to find strength within themselves. This is the true essence of compassionate and mindful giving. Number 2, don't help in ways that harm others. Compassion is a beautiful virtue. It is the foundation of kindness, empathy, and altruism. However, compassion without wisdom can lead to unintended consequences. There's an old saying, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." This phrase reminds us that even the best intentions can sometimes result in harm if we do not consider the long-term effects of our actions. True help should empower rather than create dependence. This concept is deeply rooted in Buddhist teachings, which emphasize mindful and skillful action. When we help others, we must ask ourselves whether our assistance is genuinely beneficial or if it is fostering unhealthy reliance. Helping someone means providing support in a way that encourages their growth, development, and self-sufficiency. Enabling, on the other hand, involves assisting someone in a way that prevents them from facing the natural consequences of their actions, often leading to dependency or even harm. Consider a mother who deeply loves her son and wants the best for him. Every time he encounters a problem, whether financial, academic, or personal, she immediately steps in to fix it. If he forgets to pay his bills, she covers the cost. If he struggles in school, she does his assignments. If he faces difficulties at work, she calls his boss to advocate for him. Initially, this might seem like love and support. However, over time, the son never learns to manage responsibilities on his own. He grows up without essential problem-solving skills, resilience, or independence. One day, the mother may no longer be able to help him, whether due to illness, financial constraints, or passing away. At that point, he is left unprepared for the realities of life. What began as love and assistance ultimately became a barrier to his growth. Another common example is enabling behavior in relationships with individuals struggling with addiction. When a loved one repeatedly provides financial assistance, covers up for mistakes, or makes excuses for the addicted person, they may think they are being supportive. However, this often allows the individual to continue their destructive behavior without facing the consequences necessary for change. True support in such situations involves setting boundaries and encouraging the individual to seek help. It may be painful to watch them struggle, but allowing them to experience the consequences of their actions can be the catalyst for real transformation. In Buddhism, compassion is not just about kindness, it is about wisdom. The concept of skillful means, upaya, teaches that our actions should be carefully considered to ensure they bring true benefit rather than harm. For example, the Buddha often used parables and carefully chosen lessons to guide his disciples rather than simply giving them direct answers. This approach allowed them to develop their own understanding and inner strength. One well-known Buddhist teaching illustrates this idea. The parable of the butterfly. A man finds a butterfly struggling to emerge from its cocoon. Wanting to help, he gently cuts the cocoon open to free the butterfly. However, once released, the butterfly's wings are weak and undeveloped. Without the struggle of breaking free on its own, the butterfly never strengthens its wings and ultimately cannot survive. The struggle was necessary for the butterfly's growth. Similarly, when we intervene too much in others' struggles, we may be depriving them of the opportunity to develop resilience and strength. How to help without harming. 1. Ask yourself, am I helping or enabling? Before stepping in to assist, reflect on whether your help is fostering independence or dependency. Ask, will this action empower the person to solve their own problems in the future? 2. Encourage self-sufficiency. Instead of solving problems for others, guide them in finding their own solutions. Offer advice, resources, or training rather than simply providing financial or emotional rescue. 3. Set healthy boundaries. Helping others should not come at the expense of your own well-being. Boundaries ensure that your support remains constructive rather than enabling. 4. Allow natural consequences to teach lessons. Sometimes the best help is letting someone experience the consequences of their actions. For example, if a friend repeatedly borrows money but does not repay it, refusing to lend more may be a lesson they need to learn: financial responsibility. 5. Teach problem-solving skills. Instead of giving direct answers, ask guiding questions that help the person think critically. Encourage self-reflection and accountability. 6. Provide support, not solutions. Being there emotionally, listening, and offering encouragement can be more powerful than fixing problems for someone. Empower others to take responsibility for their own growth. True compassion goes beyond immediate relief. It seeks to uplift, empower, and inspire growth. When we help wisely, we contribute to a world where people can stand on their own feet, face challenges with courage, and ultimately lead fulfilling lives. Next time you feel the urge to help someone, take a step back and ask, is this help truly beneficial in the long run? Am I empowering or enabling? How can I provide support in a way that encourages independence and resilience? When compassion is paired with wisdom, our help becomes a force for true transformation rather than unintentional harm. Let us strive to help others in ways that nurture their growth, dignity, and self-reliance. Number 3, don't help people make their important life decisions. It is natural to want to help those we care about make the best decisions in life, whether it is a close friend choosing between 2 job offers, a sibling deciding whether to move to another country, or a child trying to select a college major. We often feel compelled to offer advice and guidance. However, when we take too much responsibility for another person's decisions, we may unknowingly do them a great disservice. Each person must walk their own path, make their own mistakes, and learn their own lessons. Buddhism teaches that each individual has their own karma and dharma. Karma is the result of one's past actions, while dharma refers to one's unique life purpose and moral duty. No one else can walk the path of another. When we try to influence someone's major life choices, we risk interfering with their karmic journey. Imagine if Prince Siddhartha, who later became the Buddha, had listened to those around him who urged him to stay in his palace, live as a prince, and rule the kingdom. If he had allowed others to dictate his destiny, he would never have discovered enlightenment, and the world would have been deprived of his teachings. Why we shouldn't make decisions for others. Each person knows their own desires best. While external advice can be valuable, no one else can truly understand what another person feels deep inside. Decisions such as career choices, relationships, and personal values are deeply personal. Only the individual living that life can know what will bring them true fulfillment. Learning comes through experience. One of the fundamental principles of growth is learning through experience. Making mistakes is a part of life. If we make decisions for others, they may never develop the wisdom that comes from facing challenges, overcoming obstacles, and learning from their failures. Avoiding resentment and regret. When people feel pressured into decisions that are not truly their own, they may later experience resentment. They might blame others for their unhappiness and feel trapped in a life they never fully chose. Conversely, if they make a decision on their own, even if it turns out to be a mistake, they will own that decision and learn from it without resentment. Encouraging self-reliance. Constantly making decisions for others can make them dependent on external validation rather than developing their own sense of inner guidance. By allowing them to choose for themselves, we empower them to trust their instincts, build confidence, and take responsibility for their own lives. While we should not make decisions for others, this does not mean we should withhold support. There is a difference between guiding someone and dictating their choices. The best way to help someone make an important decision is to offer guidance in a way that respects their autonomy. Here are some ways to do this effectively. Listen actively. Sometimes people don't need advice as much as they need someone to listen to them. By allowing them to express their thoughts and feelings, they may come to their own conclusions without needing direct intervention. Ask thought-provoking questions. Instead of telling someone what they should do, ask them questions that help them clarify their own thoughts. Examples include, what excites you the most about each option? What are you most afraid of and why? What would your future self thank you for choosing? Share your own experiences without imposing. If you have been in a similar situation, you can share your story, but make it clear that it is only your experience. Avoid statements like, you should do what I did, and instead say, when I faced something similar, here's what I learned. Respect their final choice. Even if someone makes a decision you don't agree with, respect their choice. They have to live with the consequences, not you. If things don't work out, they will have learned valuable lessons that will serve them in the future. It can be difficult to watch someone struggle with a big decision, especially when we think we know what is best for them. However, true wisdom lies in understanding that each person must walk their own path. We can offer love, support, and guidance, but we must let them take responsibility for their own lives. In doing so, we allow them to grow into stronger, wiser, and more self-reliant individuals. As the Buddha once said, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. Let us respect that truth and give others the space to find their own way. Number 4, don't help when it involves money. Money and relationships often do not mix well. While helping others is a virtue, financial assistance can create unintended consequences, including resentment, loss, and broken relationships. Many friendships, familial ties, and even marriages have suffered due to disputes over borrowed money or unfulfilled financial expectations. Why money complicates relationships? At its core, money is a tool, but it carries strong emotional and psychological weight. When money enters a personal relationship, it often brings power dynamics, expectations, and a shift in how people perceive each other. The lender may begin to see the borrower as irresponsible or untrustworthy if they fail to repay, while the borrower may feel burdened by guilt or resentment. Over time, this tension can erode trust and goodwill, damaging the relationship beyond repair. Moreover, when one person repeatedly helps another financially, it can create an unhealthy dependency. Instead of encouraging self-sufficiency, it may foster a mindset where the borrower relies on the lender as a financial safety net, rather than addressing the root of their financial struggles. Buddhism teaches the concept of detachment, which can be particularly useful when it comes to money. One of the fundamental Buddhist principles is to give freely without attachment to outcomes. If you choose to help someone financially, do so with the mindset that you may never see the money again. If losing that money would harm you emotionally or financially, then it is best not to give it at all. Buddhism also emphasizes the impermanent nature of material wealth. Money comes and goes, and while it can bring temporary comfort, it should not define our relationships or our happiness. When we place too much value on money in our relationships, we risk losing both. It is noble to want to help others, but it should never come at the cost of your own well-being. Here are some key principles to consider before offering financial assistance. 1. Only give what you can afford to lose. If you decide to help someone financially, treat it as a gift rather than a loan. Ask yourself, if this money is never returned, will I be okay? If the answer is no, then it is better to decline. 2. Offer non-financial support. Instead, often, people in financial distress need more than just money. Offering guidance, helping them find better opportunities, or teaching financial literacy can be more beneficial in the long run than simply handing over cash. 3. Set clear boundaries. If you do lend money, set clear terms and put them in writing. While this may feel uncomfortable, it protects both parties by ensuring transparency. However, understand that even with an agreement, relationships can still be strained if repayment does not occur. 4. Avoid enabling unhealthy financial habits. Sometimes, repeated financial assistance prevents someone from learning important money management skills. If a person continuously asks for help but does not take steps to improve their financial situation, consider whether your help is actually harming rather than helping. 5. Trust your instincts. If you feel uneasy about lending money to someone, listen to your intuition. It is okay to say no, even if it feels difficult. True relationships should not be contingent on financial transactions. Helping others does not always have to involve money. Here are some alternative ways to support someone in need. Offer emotional support. Sometimes people just need someone to listen and provide encouragement. Provide networking opportunities. If you know someone who can offer them a job or business opportunity, making an introduction can be invaluable. Share knowledge. Teaching financial literacy, budgeting skills, or other useful information can empower someone to become financially independent. Help with resources. Instead of giving money, consider providing groceries, transportation, or other tangible support. While generosity is a wonderful trait, financial help should always be approached with caution. If you decide to help, do so without attachment or expectation. Otherwise, it is better to protect both your financial stability and your relationships by setting boundaries. Buddhism teaches us that attachment to outcomes leads to suffering. If we give with the expectation of repayment or gratitude, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Instead, if we practice wise generosity, we can maintain both our financial health and our relationships, avoiding the common pitfalls that money often brings. The key takeaway is this. If helping financially would cause you harm, or if you expect something in return, it is better not to help at all. True generosity is given freely, without attachment. Number 5, don't help people who take you for granted. Buddha once said, "Do not waste your energy on those who do not appreciate it." This simple yet profound statement serves as a reminder that our kindness should be directed toward those who truly value it. Many people are naturally compassionate and generous, believing that helping others is always a virtue. However, not everyone we help will reciprocate kindness or even acknowledge it. Some individuals take others' generosity for granted, seeing it as something they are entitled to, rather than a gift to be appreciated. Understanding when to stop helping someone who does not appreciate your efforts is not about being selfish. It's about self-respect. True kindness comes with wisdom, and part of that wisdom is recognizing when your goodwill is being exploited rather than valued. The story of Mrs. Zhang, a lesson in setting boundaries. In a small town, there lived a kind-hearted woman named Mrs. Zhang. She was known for her generosity, always willing to lend a helping hand to those in need. Among her neighbors was a man named Mr. Li, who frequently asked for favors. At first, Mrs. Zhang didn't mind. She helped him buy groceries when he was too busy, lent him small amounts of money when he was short on cash, and even cooked meals for him when he said he was too tired. Mr. Li, however, never once thanked her. He acted as if her help was his right, rather than a kindness offered out of goodwill. As time passed, his demands grew. He stopped asking for favors politely and started expecting them. If Mrs. Zhang was slow to respond to his requests, he would complain. If she ever refused, he would guilt trip her, reminding her of all the times she had helped him before. One day, Mrs. Zhang fell ill. She was weak and bedridden, unable to cook or even go to the market. She thought of Mr. Four Lai and believed that he, at the very least, would return the kindness she had shown him. But when she asked him for a small favor, to bring her some medicine, he coldly refused, making excuses about how he was too busy. That was the moment Mrs. Zhang realized something profound. Kindness should not be wasted on those who do not appreciate it. She had spent so much of her time and energy helping someone who never once valued her efforts. From that day forward, she decided to change. She still remained kind, but she became selective about whom she helped. She set boundaries and learned to say no when necessary. Her kindness became intentional rather than automatic. Key lessons from Mrs. Zhang's experience: 1. Give to those who appreciate it. Kindness should be mutual. While we should not expect anything in return for helping others, it is important to recognize when our kindness is being taken for granted. Helping someone who never acknowledges or appreciates it can be emotionally draining and unfulfilling. 2. Set boundaries to protect your energy. Some people will continue to take as long as you are willing to give. Setting boundaries is essential for self-care. Learn to say no when someone constantly demands your help without showing gratitude. A healthy balance between kindness and self-respect is crucial. 3. Value your time and kindness. Your time and energy are valuable. Instead of giving endlessly to those who don't appreciate it, direct your kindness toward those who truly need and value your support. Whether it's family, close friends, or people who genuinely need assistance, make sure your kindness is making a difference. Many people continue helping others out of a sense of duty, obligation, or fear of disappointing them. However, constantly giving to unappreciative people can lead to emotional exhaustion and even resentment. Over time, this can affect your self-esteem and mental well-being. When you feel taken for granted, it's natural to feel unimportant or invisible. The people who repeatedly take from you without gratitude may never realize how much they are draining you. This is why it is essential to protect your energy and emotional health by choosing wisely whom you help. How to identify people who take you for granted. 1. They expect your help without asking nicely. Instead of making polite requests, they assume you will always be available to assist them. 2. They never say thank you. Gratitude is a sign of appreciation. If someone never expresses thanks, they may not value your help. 3. They only reach out when they need something. If the only time someone contacts you is when they need a favor, they may be taking advantage of your kindness. 4. They guilt trip you into helping them. Some people manipulate others into helping them by making them feel guilty or responsible. 5. They never reciprocate kindness. True relationships involve mutual support. If someone never makes an effort to help you when you need it, they might be taking you for granted. How to stop helping people who don't appreciate you. Recognize the signs. Be aware of when your kindness is being exploited. Pay attention to how people react to your help. Learn to say no. You do not have to justify every refusal. A simple, "I'm sorry, I can't help with that," is enough. Prioritize yourself. Your well-being matters. Don't sacrifice your happiness for someone who doesn't appreciate your efforts. Focus on those who value you. Redirect your kindness toward people who genuinely need and appreciate it. Accept that some people will never change. Some people will always take advantage of others. Accepting this fact will help you move on and stop expecting gratitude from them. Being kind is a beautiful trait, but kindness should not be blind. Helping others is most meaningful when it is given to those who appreciate and value it. If someone continuously takes your help for granted, it is a sign that your kindness is being misused. Like Mrs. Zhang, you must learn to set boundaries, recognize when to walk away, and prioritize your own well-being. Your kindness is precious. Use it wisely. Number 6, don't help someone who refuses to help themselves. Buddha taught that suffering is often self-created and no one can save another person unless they are willing to change. This wisdom speaks to a fundamental truth about human nature. Transformation must come from within. No amount of external effort can force someone to change if they are not ready or willing. True help is not just about giving resources or providing solutions. It is about empowering someone to take responsibility for their own life. Many people misunderstand compassion, believing that helping means constantly rescuing others from their self-inflicted struggles. However, when help is given without accountability, it can quickly turn into enabling. There is a significant difference between helping someone who genuinely wants to change and supporting someone who continuously refuses to take responsibility for their actions. Helping without discernment can sometimes do more harm than good. It can trap both the helper and the one being helped in an endless cycle of dependency and frustration. Change is a deeply personal process. No one can force another person to transform if they are not willing to take the necessary steps. Trying to save someone who refuses to help themselves often leads to frustration and emotional exhaustion. This is why therapists, coaches, and spiritual teachers emphasize the importance of personal responsibility. Until a person acknowledges their need for change, any external effort will likely be in vain. True support is not about giving in to every request, but about guiding someone towards self-sufficiency. This means setting boundaries, holding them accountable for their actions, and encouraging them to take ownership of their problems. Parents who constantly bail their children out of trouble without consequences often raise entitled adults who struggle with responsibility. Friends who cover for each other's reckless behavior may think they are being loyal, but in reality, they are reinforcing destructive patterns. Real help requires balance, compassion paired with firm boundaries. Letting go is one of the hardest things to do, especially when it involves a loved one. However, enabling someone's bad behavior does not equate to love. It often delays their growth. Sometimes, people need to face the full consequences of their actions to truly understand the need for change. This applies not only to addiction, but to any self-destructive behavior, whether it be financial irresponsibility, unhealthy relationships, or a refusal to take care of one's health. By stepping back, you are giving them the space to take control of their own life. Real-life applications. In relationships, people often try to change their partners, believing that with enough love, patience, or sacrifice, the other person will transform. However, relationships cannot be built on the hope of changing someone. If a person refuses to work on their issues, whether it be anger, dishonesty, or irresponsibility, no amount of effort from the other party will fix them. In parenting, parents sometimes overprotect their children, shielding them from failure, consequences, and responsibilities. While it may seem like an act of love, overprotection can hinder a child's ability to develop independence and resilience. Teaching a child to take responsibility for their actions is one of the most valuable lessons a parent can impart. In friendships based on constant emotional rescue can become exhausting and one-sided. If a friend continuously makes poor choices and expects you to clean up their mess, it may be time to set boundaries. True friendship involves mutual support, but it also requires personal accountability. Buddhism teaches that suffering is an intrinsic part of life, but it is often self-inflicted through ignorance and attachment. The Buddha emphasized the importance of personal enlightenment. Each individual must take the path themselves. While compassion is a central tenet of Buddhism, it does not mean blindly rescuing others at the cost of their own growth. In the story of the drowning man, a wise teacher sees a man struggling in the river. Instead of jumping in to save him, the teacher throws a rope and tells the man to grab it. If the man refuses to hold on, no amount of effort can save him. This illustrates the principle that assistance must be met with effort on the part of the one receiving help. How to set healthy boundaries. Assess whether your help is enabling or empowering. Ask yourself if your support is leading the person toward independence or reinforcing their bad habits. Communicate clearly. Let the person know that you care, but also explain why you cannot continue to help in the same way. Stay firm in your decision. It is common to feel guilty, but remember that sometimes tough love is necessary for growth. Encourage self-reliance. Offer guidance, emotional support, or alternative solutions that require the person to take responsibility. Recognize when to walk away. If someone consistently refuses to take responsibility for their actions, it may be necessary to step back completely. Helping others is a noble and compassionate act, but it must be done with wisdom. True help does not mean fixing someone's problems for them. It means empowering them to fix their own. If someone refuses to take responsibility for their life, no amount of external effort can create lasting change. The greatest act of love is sometimes allowing someone to struggle so they can learn, grow, and ultimately save themselves. This is not indifference. It is the highest form of compassion. By setting boundaries and encouraging self-reliance, we allow others the opportunity to become stronger and more capable individuals. Helping others is a noble and beautiful act, but true wisdom lies in understanding the right way to help. It is not just about offering assistance, but about knowing when to step in and when to allow others to grow through their own struggles. Compassion without wisdom can lead to enabling, while wisdom without compassion can lead to cold detachment. Striking a balance between the two is essential. Help within your limits. Giving should not come at the cost of your well-being. If helping others drains you emotionally, physically, or financially, it is important to reassess your boundaries. True generosity comes from abundance, not depletion. Ensure your help is constructive, not destructive. Sometimes helping too much can weaken others rather than empower them. When we solve problems for others instead of guiding them, we may unintentionally hinder their growth and resilience. Allow others to walk their own paths. Everyone has their own lessons to learn. While it is natural to want to ease the suffering of those we care about, stepping back can sometimes be the greatest act of love. If these insights resonate with you, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Together we can spread wisdom and compassion. And always remember, sometimes saying no is the kindest thing you can do. Thank you for watching, and may you find peace and wisdom in your journey.